Okay, so let's talk about percent change. When we talk about percent change, I've been known on an exam to talk about how, there was an increase in your VRBO vacation rental and they're charging you more, or you buy a purse and you notice that it actually has a discount on it, so it's like there would be a decrease in price. The homework, I think there's examples about and we're going to do one pretty closely related to it, is what I'm hoping, about like a certain team winning so many games one year and then winning so many more the next year. And it's like, oh, was there a decrease or an increase? And what was the percent? And then we're going to do, I'm going to kind of make up my own little couple of homework problems. But the number of houses that you sell in March could go down in May, or vice versa, right? It could increase or it could decrease. And there's this little bitty formula that we use, okay? So for percent change, and we say change because it could be either or. I notice I am not fond of the words they use, and I wrote them exactly the way I thought it would show you on View an Example, but I'm going to give you like a couple of different things to write as well. I have a big fraction bar there because I'm actually going to write like whole words, okay? So what they use is we take the latest amount, or like the new amount, right? Because it's the one that happened the latest. So the latest amount, kind of in parentheses above that, I'm going to write new. And we subtract from that the previous amount, and in parentheses above that, I'm going to write original. And then after we do this subtraction in our numerator, we're going to, in our denominator, divide by the previous amount. I love patterns, I love puzzles, I love math. And if I was doing these on my homework, I would just kind of notice that the second number I put in the numerator is always the exact same number I put in the denominator. Those are literally the exact same thing, okay? Now there's little notes that they give us about our percent change. So a purse could be marked up, a purse could be marked down, a vacation rental could have a discount, or they could charge you more, right? So we have increases and we have decreases. When we do this little formula, if our answer, if our outcome ends up being positive, this is what is telling us that it is an increase. So they might not tell you what it could be, but if they do tell you you're finding an increase and your answer isn't positive, that should be your first hint that, hey, you probably typed things in incorrectly, okay? Now, if you type all of this into your calculator and it results in a negative answer, then that is a decrease. On your homework, okay, if it tells you that you're finding a decrease and your answer is not negative, I would just kind of recheck your work. Negative answers, that negative literally means that the price had been reducted. Reducted, that sounds like a weird word. There was a reduction in price. Okay, so let's put this little note next to decrease though. I don't really want to say absolute value in this class, but that's what you're taking. if I put numbers into my calculator and I know I'm looking for a decrease, and my answer is negative 3.25, okay? When I go to my math lab to enter in this answer, it is a percent, because that's what I'm finding is a percent change, but do not type the negative. I wouldn't call Mario and be like, hey, we've got to go and get these shoes. They're marked down negative 12%. It's like, oh, that sounds weird, right? They're just marked down 12%. You don't say the negative. The negative just tells you, yes, it is a decrease. And hopefully maybe someone might see. It ends up being because your first number in your numerator is smaller than your second, okay? Okay, so let's do this example. I think my little marker's about to die. Okay, so we're gonna find our percent decrease. I've got about 3 sentences that I'm gonna write, and then we will use that formula. Okay, so in 2014, the K Lions won 98 games. In 2013, they won 78. Determine the percent increase from 2013 to 2014. So them telling me what I'm finding is what allows me to know, like, what is the latest, what is the previous, as far as the different amounts of information in here, okay? So for my actual percent increase, the actual change that I'm gonna find, I can go ahead and do a fraction bar. 9 times out of 10 will forget to do that times 100 at the end here. Do you see how this works as a fraction, right? And it ends up giving me a decimal. I have to put the times 100 in the formula because that's what changes it into a percent. But when I start working on things, I've dropped this many of times and been like very confused. So just don't forget that is multiplied by 100 at the very end of that fraction. Okay, so what do I write in my numerator? So it says the latest amount, or like the new amount. Latest meaning it occurred last. And I'm looking for an increase. So I know I want a positive answer. So I would start with a larger number, which is going to be the 98. And then I subtract from that the original. In the formula it says previous amount. So that would be the 78. And then what goes in my denominator? The 78, exactly. And then right here I have my equal sign. Y'all, another reason why I love this calculator, there is nothing wrong with doing an easier one, doing this subtraction first, and then you would divide by this number in the denominator, and then lastly you would do the multiplied. But it's like you're having the order of operations. With this calculator, we have that converting button, and we have the ability to begin with our n over d. You can type this entire numerator, go down to the denominator using your cursor, type 78. I'm still blinking in my denominator, so I need to use my cursor to scoot over, and that's what pulls it out of that field, and now it's like in line with your fraction bar. And then it says to multiply by 100. Now I typed the n over d button, which means it's going to give me an answer as a fraction. But I'm looking for percent change, and because this is already typed into my calculator, I can hit the button above enter, and that's what gives me my fraction. On the homework, it'll tell you to round to the 10th place, okay? So I'm gonna write a couple of numbers and then we're gonna go ahead and round. I told my students, I was like, get this calculator. I bought it a month ago, it was $20. It is now $29. So it's gotten a little bit more expensive, but it is definitely worth it. What I end up getting is 25.6410. You just need a few numbers. Say it told me to round to the 10th place. First number after the decimal is the 10th place. I look at the one right next to it. 4 is less than 5. That means stay. So I have 25.6 stays a 6, and everything else falls off. Okay. Now this is a what? This is a percent change, so I need to add a percent symbol. And y'all, that's actually where I live. K lines, coffin lines, I don't know why I did that. But the coffin lines from 2013 to 2014 had a 25.6% increase in the games that they won. Whenever I put this into my calculator and got a positive 25 point whatever, it was positive, so I knew it was an increase. If you accidentally didn't understand the wording and you flipped these numbers in the numerator, it's going to give you a negative answer, which would actually be a decrease, and you would be like, oh no, they told me to find an increase. So this actually might not look very important, but it is, because it could help you just understand if the way you entered it in is correct, okay? Okay. So did I number that like number 1? We're going to call that number 1. That was our first example. I do have some more that we're going to do. Okay. So let's do this right here. We're going to call this our second example. What we're going to do is we're going to have some rows, and we're going to have some columns. We have 4 columns. The first one says original. And then we're going to do a vertical line. We're going to separate, and we're going to write the word new. I'm not good at drawing lines. Okay. Amount of increase is our third column. And then percent increase. Okay. So I'm gonna go and switch. We're gonna have one. So I'm shuffling through these papers. Oh, purple. Okay, so let's call this A. And we'll do B. And we'll do C. Okay, for A, the original amount. They tell me what it is. It's not very wordy. It is just kind of a table. They do them one at a time on the homework. I'm kind of just bunching it together and doing a couple without having to write all of this over and over again. We will in a minute to do percent decrease, but it's okay. Say that the original price or just the original amount of something is 100, and the new amount is going to be 125. There's no real like measurements or oh it's money or oh it's this. It's just numbers that they're showing us. It wants to know what is the amount of the increase and what was the percent increase. So if I look at the 100 and it went to 125, it was increased by 25. This one, I'm not even gonna lie, you don't even really have to do the formula if you see what it increased by, but the last thing I want you to do is try to do it in your head and like get messed up. So we're gonna work on A right here. I know that I take the new amount and subtract the original because I want an increase, and so I want the larger number out front. Divide by the original and multiply by 100. And so I would turn on my calculator, I would clear it, I would N over D, 125 minus 100 over 100. Scoot over to multiply this by 100. And you see how I get 25? There's no decimal or anything, and it's positive, which implies increase. The only thing is that my calculator is not showing me is that I would place the percent symbol next to it. But hopefully it kind of makes sense. 25, they say these are dollars. $25 is 25% of 100. So I kind of just eased us into that one right there. Okay. Now, let's say that, say it's still money and it's tickets to go to the fair, and they used to cost $12. And, now they're charging us $26. And what the homework wants is how much is the increase and what was the percent of that increase. Okay, that's what we're looking for. I'm going to do these blank so it makes sense. Well, the first thing I would do is figure out what the increase is. That's going to be the difference between these two numbers. So if I do 26 minus 12, I get 14. And now as far as using the formula, only that original and new is what goes into my formula. Okay? This is just telling me how much they hiked that price up. And it looks like it's even more than 100% of what it was. So it's like, this is going to be a really big increase. These are the numbers that I use for my formula. Okay? For B, because it's an increase that I'm finding, the number in the numerator that's first is going to be the larger one, which is the new one. Subtract the original, divide by the original, multiply by 100. Yo, and this right here could be written on all of this. All that whole top thing right there could all be written onto a note card, right? Okay, so make that obvious. Okay, now if I enter this into my calculator, I'm going to do that. I like to clear first, just so nothing stays in there. N over D, 2, 6 minus 1, 2. I use the cursor to go down, so I'm in the denominator. And I type 1, 2. And then I use the cursor to go to the right. And you need to multiply by 100. If you don't, it gives it to you in a decimal, but we want it in a percent. We multiply by 100. And because I typed that fraction button, it gave me an answer as a fraction. I need to do my button that kind of converts it. And like I said, the price, right? Oh, sorry. Yeah, that was the right one. Sorry. The price from 12 to 26, if you noticed, like that did double. So 100% more of it was added and then some. And so we have that is 116 point, let's round it to the tenths and just say 7. And that is a percent change. So I would probably find a different fair to go to, unless they've just really upped the entertainment. Okay, now let's say that I used to pay $27 for my copay at the doctor's office, and now they're gonna charge me $35. And I'm just curious, I'm like, how much of an increase was that? Okay, so the first thing I would do is let's figure out what was the increase. Okay, so if I take 35 and I subtract the 27, if I take the new amount they're charging me and I subtract the original amount they used to charge me, they've increased what I'm paying by $8. So now I can see that $8, what is the increase? I feel like I need to sneeze for a second. So let's do C. I know it's a fraction, it's an increase, which means the larger number comes first, or we do new minus original divided by original times 100 equals. Calculator, clear. N over D, 35 minus 27 over 27. over, I think the first over I said should have been down, but go down to the denominator, now go over, multiply. So make sure you do times 100, and you hit enter. I type the N over D button, it gives it to me as a fraction. I type the button that converts it. I'm going to round to the nearest tenths place. So I get 29.6%. Y'all, what this is saying is that 8 is 29.6% of $27. So you can read this in all different kinds of ways. But where I've underlined, those are the different blanks on your homework that they'll want for you to fill in, okay? Now I'm only going to do probably 2. We're going to write the same thing for this third example. It's going to be original, new, decrease, decrease. Okay, and then we're just going to do 2 of those. So exact same thing except for increase, increase became decrease, decrease. So now I'm talking about going and buying something and noticing that it's been marked down, okay, instead of things being marked up. Okay, and we're gonna have an A and a B part here. So I wanna go to this place with my friends. Originally, it cost $17 to get in, but right now, right, that's the original price. There's like this new discount, and they're only going to charge us $6, but just for tonight, right? So I noticed that there's been a decrease in the price, or whatever it is they expect from me. And so the first blank in the homework is they're asking you, what is the amount of that decrease? And then after that, we could figure out the percent of that decrease. So if you get your calculator and you do 17 minus 6, you're going to get 11. So $11 has been knocked off of this amount, right? Now for the percent decrease, I need to actually use my formula. And the way that we do the formula is the new minus the original over the original. So the new is 6 minus the original divided by the original, multiplied by 100. Okay. Oh, sorry. Why don't I grab my pen? I clear. I do my N over D button, and I'm hoping it makes sense. If you notice in the numerator, I have a small number subtracting a larger number. That's why my answer ends up being negative, but that is what tells you, oh, it's a decrease, okay? 6 minus 17 divided by 17, scoot over to multiply by 100. I typed that N over D button, so it's giving it to me in N over D form, convert it. I get a negative 64.7, we're just gonna go ahead and just round it to the tenths. For my percent decrease blank right here, I do not write on or type in my math lab the negative symbol. That confirms it is a decrease, but the answer is just 64.7%. Okay, this literally just lets me know negative answer means I'm dealing with a decrease. Oh, I'm finding a decrease. Okay, good, I did my math correctly. Okay, let's do B. What about this one? This one I don't even think that we should have to throw into the calculator, but I'm just gonna see. If we do, it's fine. Say that I wanna buy these shoes and they're $80 originally. But today only, they're $40. How much did they decrease by? They were 80, now they're 40. They decreased by $40, right? So what percent is 40 of 80? It's 50%. You said it's just half? Yeah? Now, and there's no problem at all putting it into your calculator. Okay, how do we do that? We do new minus original divided by original plus 100. You put this in your calculator, it's going to say -50. No decimal, no nothing, because it's straight up half. But because I started with the lower, I'm finding a decrease, and I know that because my answer is negative. And then whenever I go to actually type that into my math lab, just don't put that negative. I would never call and be like, hey, these shoes are marked down -50%. You just say marked down. That tells you that it was taken off, that it was decreased by that amount. That makes sense, y'all? Okay. Okay. Now, I've got a couple of minutes. I'm gonna show y'all what it looks like on the homework, but then I'm gonna kind of simplify it just a little bit for your notes, because there's no reason for us to write 12 things on a bar graph and it be not to scale and just be bad. Okay, but y'all see how this is? Okay, and we don't have to write all of this. I'll just kind of write that very last thing. Okay, so let's do this example here. We'll call this example 3. I'm believing we're on example 3. This is example 4, so I just lied to you. I don't want it to be too ugly. Okay, so there's 2 of them. One says an increase, one says a decrease. It's talking about homes being sold in the country. The first one that we're gonna do is, what is percent increase from February to March? What is percent increase from February to March? Now, I'm really hoping that it makes sense that on your homework, whenever you see the number line and you see the bars, you don't care about the values at all for January, April, May, June, July. You're only specifically looking at February and March. So that's why I'm only going to show you February and March. There is a number line that they have. Excuse me. I mean, it's kind of broken here because I'm starting with February. Let's go ahead and just do a little bar for February. We're going to do a bar that's larger for March. That should kind of make a little bit of sense that I'm looking at an increase, because it does look like my bar graph is larger in March than it is for February. It has 1037 written right above February. It tells you there are 1,037 homes sold in February. And then 1124 is what is written above March. There is more stuff, but we don't need the other more stuff. We just need this stuff, okay? Now, because it told me that I'm looking for a percent increase, that should be what helps you understand that your first number in your numerator needs to be larger, okay? But if you need to think about it the way that we've been saying it, if you have a fraction bar, multiply by 100. So we have the new amount minus the original amount, or the latest right here, which is the 1124, minus the original, which would be going back, right? Because it says increase, the larger number is my first number in my numerator, and the smaller number is my second. So I would start with 1124, and I subtract the 1037. I divide by the 1037, and then I multiply by 100. So I'm going to go ahead and enter all of that into my calculator real quick. we're gonna round to the 10th place. I get 8.4, and that is a percent. And I'm glad that it is a positive 8.4 because that tells me it is an increase, which is what I was looking at. And then last example, what is percent decrease? Okay, I was looking at my numbers closely. What is percent decrease from April to May? Decrease means I want my answer to result in a negative outcome. And so that means that the first number in my numerator has to be smaller than my second. I feel like that's the easiest way to kind of explain what's going on, or why I'm grabbing the certain numbers that I'm grabbing. But it's saying that there was a decrease. Basically, April is larger than May is. And so if I draw an April, and then if I draw a May, and the numbers that I have on April is 1,127 homes were sold. And the number of homes sold in May was 1,101. Right? The bar gets smaller, it steps down. There is a decrease from April to May. For my formula, a decrease needs to result in a negative number. That's going to come from the computation that's done here, more specifically in the numerator. It is the latest, subtract the previous. So the latest month here is May. So the latest is 1101. Subtract the previous month, it's 1127. Divide by 1127. N over D, 111 minus 1127 over 1127. I keep saying over. I get negative 2.307, but I'm going to round to the 10th place. So negative 2.3, and that is a percent. I'm not going to put my box around this though, because I would be putting my box, or like, hey, this is my answer with the negative sign. This negative just means, yes, it's a decrease. Okay, awesome. The final answer is just 2.3%. Does that make a little bit of sense? We're good there? Okay, awesome. So that is the examples that I have for your percent change homework. We'll go to our break, and then we can come back and we'll do the 10.2 homework, okay?